Okay, which I believe I have now done. I think I've got captions on. I wouldn't swear to it. Uh, oh, I have now. Right, excellent. Well, welcome everyone to our weekly call. Let me just put up my screen, share it for a second. And as you may have seen, this week we're in a second we'll be talking about the Nominet DNS Fund, which is bang on sort of topic for a weekly DNS call, sponsored, I should have said, by DNS OARC. So thank you to OARC for their long-term support of the call. So the plan for the call, if I just move slides. In a second, I'll hand over to Oli Tweedie, who some of you will know, who's the CTO at Nominet, who's going to explain about the newly announced DNS Fund. And then, depending on how we get on time-wise, I'll talk about some recent developments, highlight a few deadlines that are coming up, etc. So standard stuff as always. So with that in mind, let me stop sharing. And I think Ollie and possibly team members will be doing this, so it may be a team effort, but welcome to the call. I think it's been a while, Ollie. I know we.
Yeah, it's been a while since I think we were in Vancouver IETF last time we caught up, but
Yeah.
I hope to get to one fairly soon. So I will be also presenting this at the next OARC in Stockholm, so I'll have an opportunity to meet lots of you then and catch up with a few familiar faces as well. So today I'm here to talk about the Nominet DNS Fund. It does exactly what it says on the tin, hopefully. We're talking about funding struggling DNS projects in the open source space. I'm Oli Tweedie, the CTO of Nominet. I'm joined by Hugh Dixon, Chief Enterprise Architect, and an ex-colleague of mine from Sky. So we were involved in getting Sky broadband off the ground and saw that grow through the years to be a pretty big ISP in the UK. And then Carl Dyson also joins us, is our enterprise architect and sort of leading expert in DNS at Nominet. So please direct all the really difficult DNS questions to Carl. And then I'm joined by Amy O'Donnell, our social impact lead, and Amy's the brains behind all of the fund setup and logistics, and has done a tremendous job to actually get this off the ground and turn it into a living, breathing thing. So they're my panel, well, my colleagues. So what is the Nominet DNS Fund? Well, we recognise as Nominet that we benefit a huge amount from the open source community. We certainly use open source software in its almost entirety to run our business. And while we pay for support for the various big name DNS servers and DNS software, we also recognize that there's a lot of smaller software projects that sit within the DNS space, and we also depend upon those. And some of those projects are struggling. Some of them are only supported by a very small number of individuals, in some cases only one or two people. And using the public benefit side of Nominet, because we are a not-for-profit organisation, we want to be able to put more back into the DNS community. So not only providing funding or support to those kind of larger entities, but also sort of directly supporting some of the smaller ones. Now, you can go to Nominet's website and apply for the DNS fund there. There are no strings attached. It is exactly what it says on the tin in terms of it being a fund for DNS and open source projects. We only care about the community getting stronger and having a stronger internet for the future. So that's that. So perhaps go on to the next slide and I'll tell you a bit more about it. So yeah, I really liked this XKCD diagram. It just kind of seems very apt and what we end up with in terms of the services that we run and things that we're looking after, where we all take modern digital infrastructure for granted, and then there's some tiny little project that everything depends upon right down at the bottom of the stack, and some poor person is supporting this, and no one knows that it's so vital to everything that runs on top of it. But yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to target. So the primary goal, improve the security, long-term sustainability and resilience of the DNS open source projects. The focus is open source critical infrastructure components relevant to the development, deployment and operation of the global DNS. And funding is 370,000 available in this round. Now, this is a learning activity for us. So, if this goes well, we probably do other rounds, but that's what we've got initially. And there's no minimum, but the maximum per applicant is £100,000. The key date, so it opened on the 17th of September, just a few days ago at our member conference, and closes for applications on the 26th of October. And you can apply at the link below, but it's not too difficult to find that from a search engine either. It's right front and center on our website. And then what criteria do we have for assessing these DNS projects? Well, we came up with 5 of them. So initially, public benefit. So to what extent does the work enable safe, secure and resilient critical infrastructure whose loss or compromise could severely impact society? The core need, to what extent does the successful resilient operation of the global DNS depend on this solution to operate? Proven use, is the technology or capability already being used successfully and at scale? The right people, does the person or team have the skills, experience and understand the need for this task? Do they have a track record of getting similar things done? And then finally, value and sustainability, does the proposal present good value for money, and would the funding activity help ensure long-term sustainability? And then if we move on, we have an expert panel to make these assessments. So I'm chairing the panel. I'm joined by some very senior and esteemed people, and some of these individuals I'm sure folks on the call already know. So we've got Peter Stevens from Mythic Beasts, Roy Owens from ICANN, Kayleen Osborne from the Linux Foundation, Hannah Perry from DNS, and Mirko Swillis from the Sovereign Tech Agency, and last but not least, Michaeli Nellon from Black Knight. And that is it. So without further ado, I'll ask if anyone's got any questions or anything they would like to ask about the Nominet DNS Fund, and I'll probably throw the ball to some of my colleagues at the same time.
Yeah, really interesting and excellent initiative, in my humble opinion, Ollie. Perhaps just to kick off, in terms of sort of what you're wanting to fund, how tightly coupled to the DNS does it need to be? I'm trying to think of an example. So, for example, if it was, say, I know, an open source block list using the DNS on the one hand versus an alternative to, I don't know, Unbound on the other hand. I mean, they're bad examples, clearly, but on
I
that
think
sort of
no,
spectrum.
there is no thing that we deem too small. So if you think about an open source DNS server, or something like a DNSSEC implementation might use OpenSSL, for example. A good example would be, it's okay to say provide funding for something smaller like OpenSSL, given that it's so fundamental to everything that runs on top of it. So hopefully that answers the question. There's not really anything too small. So it could be an individual library that's simply just dependency within a stack of DNS software. It could be a tool or an open source project used for monitoring and observability that sits around the DNS in particular, and provides some kind of operational benefit, some tooling that's used to manage and run the DNS. It doesn't have to necessarily be a DNS server. It's just got to be in the realm of running DNS, really,
Yeah,
directly or indirectly.
yeah, fair enough. Okay, I'm sure there must be some burning questions, I would imagine, from other people on this. So does anyone want to jump in with an immediate question for Ollie? I see a question from Kurt. Not sure if that's a, well, I'll ask it anyway. How about quantum DNS?
I have to defer to somebody else on this, I think. I mean, is that in terms of DNS using quantum computing, or is that a specific project?
I would
But
speculate.
securing DNS using quantum technology would be an idea.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's not, there's no real boundary to it. I think what the panelists are looking for, though, is impact. So we'll look at each individual project on its merit, but we're trying to get, I hate the American term, but I'll use it anyway, back sort of bang for the buck, if that makes sense. So what things do we think will have the greatest impact and are in maybe the greatest distress or something like that, because we might find, one particular project is, gone almost at the point of being lost and needing immediate attention or something like that, just to be returned back to a fully patched state and been able to be maintained and be sustainable again.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Kurt, Josh.
Yeah. Does this cover any sort of educational or awareness initiatives to sort of maybe aim to educate communities about best practices and things like that are related to either tuning, deployment, protection of the DNS services?
This is something that came up in one of our panelist meetings when we were just getting set up, and it's quite an interesting topic because you can imagine that the DNS is run by quite senior people, and certainly quite experienced developers write some of these DNS servers. Yet if we're to have a sustainable ecosystem around DNS in the long run, we've got to get people who are just starting their careers involved in supporting and maintaining DNS. So it's something that we're thinking about, probably not in the first round, but it is clearly a consideration for the reasons that I've just said. Amy, I don't know if you want to provide any more on that front.
The only thing I'd add is, as you can see, one of our principles is around sustainability. And so while in this first round we are looking about maintenance of existing infrastructure, I think that an application would stand out if there was a role for some kind of sharing of skills or bringing individuals up to speed, particularly given we know that it's a community that needs to make sure those skills are passed on and spread on in terms of legacy. So I think it would make an application stand out. I don't think it would make the whole of an application, but please do forward us your ideas, and there is a form on the website as well. So if you're not sure, you can always ask, and it's something that we might consider in future rounds. The Demos research we first set up with this did think about a kind of innovation or challenge round, and we've decided to actually just focus on the kind of core nuts and bolts in this instance.
Thank you.
Excellent, thanks, Josh. Peter.
Thanks. It's interesting to hear that block lists might be considered candidates. I know an ad block list that is in desperate need of funding. Sorry, that's a joke. I have a little ad block list, but I'm not looking for funding for it, really. I am curious about a couple of things, though. How many applications have you had so far? Like, have you had what? You have one. Wow. Okay. That's I suppose it's only just been
5 days.
Live for 3
5
days.
Yeah. Right.
And that
Okay.
includes the weekend. So
yeah, we've only had one, but one of our panelists in particular is very keen that this should be a cup of coffee style application. So it should be something you can add links of existing content you've got online and something that is quite quick. So, firstly, it's really important for us to get the outreach right. So if you have ideas of ways we can get that out and get those applications coming in, we do hope it is something that is quick and streamlined and easy to apply.
Yeah. And before anything else, this is such a cool thing to be doing, by the way. I think just, giving money to people to help the internet, DNS on the internet is just brilliant. So yeah, kudos for that. One thing, um, does this cover blockchain domains?
I mean, as I sort of said, bang for the buck, probably not. I mean,
Probably not.
yeah, I mean,
I don't con
you're probably talking to the wrong person because I'm a bit of a, a blockchain, well, skeptic. I think it's supposed it's useful for cryptocurrency, but I'm yet to be seen, yet to be impressed by other use cases. But perhaps leave it there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a. I didn't think it would. I was just curious because I think most people are very skeptical about the value of blockchain domains. So,
Seems like
um,
a solution looking for a problem, but that's you know,
Josh,
we'll look at everything. I mean, that's why we've got a panel of experts because it's not necessarily what Ollie thinks, but that was
just so you know, Ollie, Josh, who's on the call, wrote a blog post with literally that title last week. So
right. So I'm not
the,
alone, perhaps.
no.
No, you're definitely not alone.
cool. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else got any immediate questions that spring to mind?
Yeah, uh, I was willing to ask if that covers exports from DNS tab. I recently came up to several certs from several countries in a conference I gave in Strasbourg at the European Union or Council of Europe or something like that. I don't know exactly where I was, uh, but there was a huge email cycle, and it was about protective DNS. And most of the people complained that they're lacking visibility. They don't have sufficient tools in the open source to translate the DNS tab logs from By9 into whatever. It could be, for example, we recently developed a small exporter for Kintic. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. It's a BGP monitoring software. Works with OTTs to differentiate, for example, meta traffic. And they don't know because it's the same autonomous system whether something is directed to Facebook, to Instagram, or to WhatsApp, and they desperately needed flows, so IPFix, flows 10, and well, they came directly to us to ask for this kind of conversion. And other guys told me from the certs of India, Belgium, and Colombia that they needed these exporters. Is this something that can be taken in account in this funding?
I mean, the short answer is yes. I think anything that is used to support DNS and the running of DNS would be something that we would look at. I mean, we've looked at things like that ourselves, you know, trying to do analytics off the back of DNS tap data. And I think lots of companies end up solving the problem in different ways, and some using, you know, different types of streaming technology and different types of databases to query the data. And obviously it's all got to be fast enough to be able to process the right packets per second. So
yeah, there's a lot of
it's a common use case, I think, and there's not perhaps something that's really stands out. I think things have moved on quite a lot in the analytics space as well in recent years with all the kind of ML and AI capabilities. So I think, yeah, I mean, if there's something interesting, we would look at it.
Okay, great question, Carlos.
yeah.
Peter, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I just thought of another question. Are commercial companies who are producing open source software, do they qualify?
I mean, generally we're trying to sorry, Amy, do you want to go?
You go ahead, Ollie.
Yeah, generally we're trying to target, I think, more small and sort of struggling organizations. You've all seen the open source projects being bought up by the big Silicon Valley companies and then used as a way of kind of monetizing open source. So some of the panelists are quite passionate about the movement to keep things freer and more open, and not necessarily, commercial open source, but there are commercial entities who are doing great things as well, and they're not particularly big, and maybe they're also struggling. So it is a bit of an it depends answer. But I think it's more about having a free and open internet and not one that's kind of strongly for profit, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would only add it comes back to the values or the principles that Oli shared. So the first one being that it's in the public benefit. So while a bigger company would technically be eligible, we would be looking for the ways in which it is restoring that kind of public benefit commitment.
We're not the only public benefit company to that point. There are other not-for-profits and public benefit organisations in the DNS area that try to operate with a bit of a surplus as well. So, they're still commercial in a sense, but they're doing it for the benefit of the public. So, it's a judgment call at the end of the day, but that's what we're looking at. Those kind
Thanks.
of organisations.
Okay. Any other burning questions from anyone?
Could I just say thank you so much for having us, that we will also be having a webinar on the 1st of October. So if you are working through an application or you know someone who might be, we'll be there to answer more questions, or indeed you can get in touch with us. And I think a lot of our success in this will be reaching the right people. So if you know the right people, or you know the right networks or listservs or email groups, whatever it might be, we'd be really keen to seek out your support in making sure we do that outreach correctly. So do be in touch if you can think of anything that would help us.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Amy. Well, could you pop, if you've got it, if you got a link to that session, could you pop that in the chat as well as your email? That's fantastic as well. And then I'll make sure we share that too. Yeah, anyone can join that to get further information. And I think excellent to hear that you've, with your sort of cup of coffee style application, easy to apply sort of thought process, because I know you see a lot of schemes where it might take several days of time to put something in. So to have something which is relatively painless to
Peter at Mythic Beast to thank for that. I think he's championing the keep it simple, don't make it difficult for people, make it something that they can do over a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think that's a nice guide, and hopefully means you've got as a panel a lot less stuff to actually read through as well. That you have quite short, punchy.
It makes people, think about a little bit more about the why as well. Really kind of what's the essence of the ask. So
yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what this surfaces in terms of calls for support, but hopefully it will inject some sort of new energy into the much abused ecosystem, which is marvelous to see.
Yeah. So the other thing, to just circle back to the beginning of the conversation, is I will be doing a presentation not too dissimilar to this one, but also slightly different audience, because I know not everybody attends DNS OARC or every single one. So I will be speaking about this at DNS OARC. There is also potentially some Nominet DNS OARC DNS Fund beers potentially going to be happening as well. So maybe that will get people interested in the DNS Fund too.
Which, to be fair, as we discussed on this call, I think was it last? No, a couple of weeks ago with the OARC team, the cost of beer in Stockholm is not trivial. So I think that'd be welcome with open arms by anyone in Stockholm. Even if your money might not go very far, you might exhaust the entire DNS fund just by paying the bar bill.
Hopefully not. I hope, every little helps anyway.
Yeah.
I think opportunity for some good conversations in the room. I'll be Carl's going to be joining me as well, not just for the beers, but also for some talk about the DNS.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you, Ollie and team, for the initiative and for sharing that at short notice. But I felt like it was an opportunity not to be missed, given the subject matter. And hopefully, everyone on this call will know 2 or 3 friends they can share this with to draw it to their attention. So we more than double the number of applications that the panel's received, which shouldn't be hard. At the moment, but hopefully give it time as the news spreads. It will build some really good.
Give people a bit of time to think about it all and what they might apply for. But yeah, we expect there to be more. I think there's a few that we've heard are in the pipeline as well. So we've got one kind of officially submitted, but a few other people formulating them. So yeah, we'll see where we get to.
Brilliant. Right, well, thank you for that. And you're obviously all welcome to stay on the call, but I will shift gear and just talk about some of the sort of recent news headlines. And then if there's any further questions in the chat, I can certainly share those afterwards as well, if anyone has a sudden burst of...
Well, thanks, Andrew. I'm due elsewhere, but I will probably leave at least Hugh and Carl behind. But yeah, thanks and see you next time.
Brilliant. And thanks for changing your diary at such short notice, Ollie.
No, it's quite all right. This is why we're here. This is what it's all about. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Right. Okay, so let's, as I said, I just swap back to share my screen. Hopefully that was useful, and we'll start people thinking of how this really excellent initiative could serve a really useful purpose. So I'm just going to move on then, and as always, just touch on some of the stuff that I've sort of various news developments, mainly DNS related, from roughly the last week. First of which I'm not going to talk through in detail, was the Nominet DNS Fund. Yeah, you know all about that now, so I'll gloss over that. I was also really pleased to see a DNS over Quick working an implementation guide from Catchpoint, which and I just had to check back to see the RFC 9250 was published just over 3 years ago, and things have been relatively quiet since, in my opinion, for DNS over Quick. So it was really good to see this. Just sort of talking about some of the limitations of DOT and DO and that are addressed by DOQ. And it also, the guide explains how to implement a private DOQ server using DNS dist. So it's quite practical as well as sort of theoretical in explaining the advantages. So I thought that was a really good thing to see, and hopefully that will encourage more people to take a look at DOQ. I know AdGuard, pretty much as the standard was published, they were sort of very early in the game, looking at the advantages, and I think they concluded that it was much more efficient code-wise versus DO. But from what I've seen, I think things have been relatively sort of quiet since then. So yeah, that just caught my eye. Interesting TLD market report from Centre, published I think the back end of last week, just highlighting that the TLD market does continue to grow, but the sort of devil, as they say, is in the detail. So although on average the sort of 300 largest TLDs have seen growth of 3.6% over the last 12 months to April of this year, some have actually declined, whereas there's been quite strong growth in Asia Pacific. So some of you may find that useful. Neil Smythe, who certainly I know, I think a few other people on this call will, put together some thoughts on LinkedIn about the role that the DNS, or specifically GTLDs, could play linked to AI, to provide sort of, in his words, a ground truth environment for AI. So, you know, given everything is AI related. It's good to see that in reality, it's the DNS. Innovative thinking. So I thought I would share that. Also, just sort of going down the screen, as a reminder in Circle ID that the registration operations workshop takes place next week. It's free to attend, virtual workshop. So just include a reminder of the sort of link for the registration for that. Other stuff, I'll just go through slightly more quickly. The threat intelligence team at Infoblox continue to do some fantastic work, building this time on their really detailed analysis of Vex Trio, the traffic distribution system. They've identified a new one, Vein Viper, which is allegedly linked to some legitimate commercial ad tech companies, but very much they're taking them into the malicious space. So it's a very similar model, it would appear, to Vex Trio, but with a slightly different name. So you may find that of interest. On the dark side of the DNS, there's a piece in Akamai about its distributed denial of defense rather than DDoS is the new thing. And there's an explanation to that in a blog post from Akamai, which you can see. And then I put this in mainly because Joe Rice-Jones continues to do some interesting, or write some interesting articles over the last several weeks on XDA developers, and this time he's explained why he has moved from Pi-hole to Unbound. With a bit of detail to that. So since he goes into more technical depth than many, I thought that was worthy of sharing. And then I think finally, Mozilla have announced support for much faster support of encrypted DNS on Android, with claim performance virtually the same as traditional sort of DNS, unencrypted DNS, if you will. And last on the screen, Centre have put out a call for sort of proposals. Effectively, they're going out to tender for some work for a domain crawler, or providers to operate a domain crawler, which may be of interest to some of the people on this call or your organisations. Yeah, so those are all the sort of DNS specific things. Of the other stuff, there's plenty of other things which caught my eye. I won't go through all of these. I just called out a couple. Firstly, headline of the week by far, but Leo rejects plan for AI Pope, building on the discussion we had last week about Albania having an AI minister. Clearly, there's been discussions about could there be an AI Pope, but the current incumbent has ruled that out, at least for the time being. And then fourth down, I just mentioned Etsy has got sort of 3 new people tasked with helping support the standard creation of new standards under the European Union Cyber Resilience Act. As you can see, other stuff has happened. I won't go through all of these. I just quickly scanned to see if there was anything else. Yeah, and since quantum came up earlier, you'll see a blog post from Cloudflare. You don't need quantum hardware for post-quantum security, which should be, I would have thought, self-evident, but their post explains why that is in fact the case. So for certainly for post-quantum cryptography, you don't need quantum computing, which is probably just as well. Few dates coming up. First one, the UK government is considering a future grant scheme on international digital technical standards, and they put out they've posted on that, and they're asking for people's thoughts on it. So just looking for expressions of interest. So it's not a current grant scheme, but they're just asking for people's thoughts on their what they're currently looking at. So that may be of interest to others. Just sort of scanning down the list. In a week's time today, the final program for RIPE 91 will be published. and that sort of sent a call for tender, as they titled it, call for proposals, I think I would call it. The deadline for that's also next week, the 30th of September, and then other stuff sort of moving on from there. Details which you've got to hand, including, I think, over the page, I've added the Nominet DNS Fund application, the NOG FI call for presentations, which was mentioned on this call last week, and so on. So plenty of other things. Deadline's a bit later, so you've got more time. A lot of events on at the moment. So, for example, later this week, you can see there's an annual European Cybersecurity Conference in Brussels. There's a short, I think, a couple of hours or so, might even be half day, mainstreaming trust and safety in online gaming, which you can attend virtually or in person in New York, and then that registration operations workshop as well, which is online only. And then before you know it, it will be OARC 45 in Stockholm in early October, etc. So lots of things happening through this month and next, as you can see from those. And there's a whole bunch of other things as well. Those are just ones I thought that were especially interesting. And then finally from me, and then I'll stop talking, see if anyone else has got anything they want to discuss this week, or if there's anything in the chat, which I can't see at the moment because my screen's not big enough. On the call next week, Sarah will be talking about authoritative dot and doc. So go back to DOQ, which is a good thing, which I know is also going to be discussed at OARC a week later. So it'd be a good preparatory discussion for OARC for people attending that. The week after, Jim Mosley and friends will be talking about IoT, DNS security and privacy guidelines. And then the week after, we will talk about feedback from the forthcoming IAB W3C co-hosted workshop, as well as any highlights from OARC 45 as well. And then things continue into the distance. And there's some sort of new stuff, which I haven't got dates for yet. You'll see at the bottom of the screen. And I have added since last week, discovering the discovery of designated resolvers. You have Henya Norsk of Core Labs. That's confirmed now for the 15th of December. So we've got stuff pretty much through till Christmas, but with a few gaps, which I'll no doubt fill out over the next couple of weeks or so. And I think that is everything from me. So let me stop sharing there, because as I say, I can't see the chat. So is there anything that anyone put in the chat which is worth, needs a discussion?
I just mentioned that relatively the state for LACNIC meeting overlaps with the DNS work in Stockholm. Yeah,
and that's helpful, Carlos, to know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's lacnic44.lacnic.net. There will be also LACNOG, and which it's the equivalent of NANOG, and the major telcos will be there. There will be lots of talks. I will be holding one on protective DNS on the 7th. So they shifted their focus a little bit also to things like DNS, because before it was only about data center architecture, fiber, and stuff like that. So that's I wanted to mention. Otherwise, I would have gone to Stockholm to meet people.
Yes, the challenge of so many things being on, and of course that also overlaps with the IAB W3C workshop in London, which is those same dates. So that's a popular week for people to be meeting in different countries simultaneously. So it's a case of pick your favorite child, everyone, sadly, or attend everything virtually and do your best. Which I suppose is all possible time zones, I guess, between certainly OARC and LACNIC, just about, if you've got stamina.
Yeah. Well, I will be working in Miami about those dates, and I'm 2 hours away from El Salvador, so I chose that. But if I stayed in Barcelona, I think Stockholm would have been the best thing to do.
Yes. Yeah. Gosh, and you've made me realize it's only a year ago that we had the OARC meeting combined with the ICANN DNS symposium in Santa Marta in Colombia. It seems a lot more than a year ago, so being in South America, but there you are. Time flies. So, okay, that's good to know. As I say, I'll add that to our list just so people are aware of that. And I'll put the link as well. Okay, anything else that anyone else wants to raise whilst we're on the call today? Now's a good chance if you wish to. And either sort of raise your virtual hand, just unmute, or put something in the chat, whichever's easier if you wish. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone typing. Can't see any virtual hands raised at the moment, and no one seems to have unmuted. Oh, but in which case, perhaps use this time. We've finished 30 minutes early, so that's probably just enough time to fill in your application for the excellent newly announced Nominet DNS Fund. Make a cup of coffee, put your application in, and then be fascinating to see what comes out once the panel have deliberated. See what gets funded. More seriously, hope that was useful, everyone. Have a fantastic week and look forward to catching up with you next week when we hear all about authoritative dot and doc from Sarah. So have a great week. See you all then. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.